So as we started out with building the arrangement and starting the project with a proper intro beat, um, we just spoke about how we create that TFT, the time for tension. And I think it is really important to move to the chord section from there, because you have this little block of like pause. It really is that moment that people grab their drinks, do a refill, talk to each other, film, reply to a WhatsApp message or whatever, whatnot, post an Instagram story. And now it's time to grab their attention back to your song again. And the way you do that is by introducing some effects. You can do a boom, an impact, you can do claps, like an interesting chord progression. All of that works. I'm going to try to create some of that here in the project that we've been working on since part one. Moving back to the project, we have our stack of synths here, and there are a lot of them, as you can see. Is it necessary to have so many layers? Absolutely not. It's not. There's no rule that you need like 5 layers to make it sound fat. If you can do it in 2, maybe even 1, be my guest. And I think it always is less is more. So the less synths you have going on, the easier it is to glue them together and make them sound fat. But sometimes you just need to fill up that spectrum to make it sound epic. The more layers you have, the more work you usually have on mixing them together. So in my case, I have like how many? Like 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, even 7. But one of them is a white noise, so I don't really count it as a layer. But 6 is absolutely fine. And if you go look at bigger projects in, for example, trance or progressive house, some tracks just have more than 12 layers of a lead sound. So personal taste, this is just a rule of thumb. I always end up using 4 to 5 layers in most of my tracks, and sometimes it's a little bit more, depending on the direction I'm going. So looking back, one of them always should be the leading synth sound, the one that has the most focus, that stands out, that also brings the recognizable element to the lead sound. And in my case, on this demo, I think it's going to be this one. I'm going to solo it. And we have this other layer that actually sounds quite similar, but it just feels like it's filtered back a little bit, and it's a little bit wider in the mix. So on the synthesizer, on the second one, the Spire, you just like widen up the sound a little bit more using a chorus, maybe using a doubler, maybe just giving it more voices. There's multiple ways to do so, or you just make it really wide with a plugin. In Logic, you could do, let's say, a delay. You go to sample delay. That works really well. You can also use a plugin called Wider, and I think that is of Infected Mushrooms, if I'm not wrong. But you should only use this one on a mono sound and not on a stereo sound already, because it's going to mess with your face. So I'm going to go back, use sample delay, and for me, I just do that because I'm used to this plugin. It's so easy. And here you create a little bit of a delay between the left and the right channel, and that's how your brain gets fooled by thinking it's stereo. And because it's the second layer, you can do that. I would not recommend doing this on your main synth, because then it's really gonna sound weird if you have playing on a big festival or just even on a small club where they do not have a stereo sound system. You'll be surprised how many clubs and bars do not have a stereo sound system. They just link all the speakers. And then when you play a mono track, I have an option here on my monitor controller where I can listen mono to the track. And if you don't have a controller that can do it for you, you can even use a plugin to do so. In Logic, there is a plugin called, I think it's called Imaging, and then you go to Direction Mixer. You can actually make your track mono, and there's actually multiple plugins that can do this. It's also good to check how your track sounds like when it's mono. Don't forget that not the only place where you're playing the song is the studio. So there's going to be many different places where your track should be played if you do it right, which is always the aim. So regarding the layers and different layers we have, what do we have going on? We have this second layer, which is more stereo. Then we have a really high, annoying rave sound, but it really fills up the gap when you play it together with the other ones. We have a Spire that is a little bit cleaner. A little bit less reverb. Oh, the previous one was an Omnisphere, by the way. I love that plugin. Then we have a Nexus. Gotta have the Nexus in the mix. Gotta have the Nexus. Then we have Kontakt that's playing some sort of an organ. And then we have our old but gold ESP. Together, it's gonna sound... The mix is not there yet, but we have the right elements, I believe. Okay, how do we build from this? All of these tracks are already in our track group called ST Synths. And as you can see, it already has a kickstart on it. Let's just, for now, make sure that when the drop hits, I want to have sidechain, and I don't want to have the sidechain before the drop in the breakdown. Let's first fix that. So we click A, we open up our kickstart, and in my case, I have the option, if you go to your left top mix, there's this option called Auto Select Automation Parameters in Read Mode. If I were you, I would just enable that because it's going to allow you to touch one of these knobs and Logic will directly show an automation which knob you just turned. So in my case, I'm going to change the wet here and it will show kickstart mix and I can start drawing. We obviously don't want to have any mix here in the beginning because it should not be there yet. And we want to build it up here that at the drop it gets to the amount of mix that I want it to be at. Just like that, and then here I know I'm going to fade it out again because the second part of the breakdown, or actually the second breakdown starts. So we kind of want to just remove it there again. So we fixed the automation for the sidechain for the synths now. That is a good start, and I think it really sets you up for building the right breakdown. Now, how do we make sure that these synths are being filtered in? All of them together. You can actually go to every and each different track, use the cutoff of the song or of the actual plugin. Let's just click copy, so every time I mess something up here, I can just click paste. Well, this doesn't do a lot because it's probably routed a little different. That does something. There we go. So I can actually make it start like this. This is probably the only layer where I'm actually going to change something in the synth. For all the other layers, I would just use a filter that works for all of them. So making sure that it's sounding the same, I'm going to open up my automation, click paste again. So we have the original preset as it is. And now I'm just going to move all of these sliders manually. And it will detect already which one it is. And I'm just going to drag it down here. Use some of the curve, so we curve it out here. And let's see what else. Okay, so you see that this knob has most impact on this filter here. So we're first going to change the cutoff. Again, it will show up here, and I'm just going to lower it a little bit. And now we're going to change sustain here because that also makes an impact. And we're also going to change release. It's a lot of work in the beginning here, but I like the main sound to be introduced right.